Thanks, Rich. That was really great. Thanks. So we're going to go into our first session of speakers. So my name is Russell, and I'm the Managing Digital Director of an agency called 4Agency, where we look after PR, comms, website, digital, on-gallery, and remote experiences for people. And it's fantastic to be here today. And I'm also the one that anyone who's submitted, I've read most of the submissions and sent out the email. So any complaints about today's things, come and see me. But we're really lucky to have a fantastic lineup today. And I'm going to be starting this first session off, and we're going to be joined by Eva Liparova, who's going to be joining us remotely. And she's going to be talking about 10 tips for a digital project run by a small team and how that can lead to a big organizational shift. And then that's going to be followed up by Joe Duggan, who is going to be giving a talk titled "We Built It, They Came," and followed up by Nick Wyness, who's going to be talking about museum and the creator economy. And then finally for our session, Lou Carroll is going to be joining us to talk about science in the making, inspiring the next generation. So how all the talks are going to go is everyone's going to come up and do their talk. If you have questions, please save them till the end, where we'll be having a group Q&A session with everyone up on the stage. And people here will have noticed there is the QR code up for Slido as well, if you don't feel like putting your hand up and talking. We have the roving mics. And then those people who are watching remotely as well, if they can connect on there and ask any questions, and we'll try and make sure that everyone gets a chance to have their say. So I'd like to kick off with Eva Liparova, who is a freelance product leader, and her talk as well, which is going to be delivered remotely. Hopefully it'll appear on the big screen. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you here at MCG Birmingham. I'm sorry I can't be in the room with you, but I'll try and make the sound as lively as I possibly can on a video recording. So let's say that you are building a customer-facing digital project. It likely touches a lot of teams. You will need a lot of team members working on it. And it could be a great catalyst for internal change, becoming a bit more user-centric in how you make decisions. But how do you actually do that in a way that lasts? My name is Eva Liparova. I work as a freelance digital product lead. And what that means is I help folks like you get the most value and help you sort of define, develop, and deliver digital services. My main work experiences or main work influences include working in the digital team at the V&A for a few years. I trained as a theatre director about 20 years ago, and I worked for a couple of Silicon Valley startups for a few years, which really taught me how to get the most value out of building things quickly, putting them in front of users, testing stuff, because money was always running real low. So what does someone like me do? I think that my job on every project is to get the most value out of these three areas. Your digital project needs to work across all three in balance. I believe that if one of them is missing or not sufficiently explored, your project will fall apart like a two-legged stool. And absolutely central to this is working with users. So who is this talk intended for? You are probably a small to mid-sized organization. You don't have an in-house digital team. You rely on outsourcing to a web agency or different product agencies for different things. You probably don't describe yourself as a digital product expert. So these tips are really intended for someone like you who will need to oversee making digital projects with your agencies, and how to kind of look out for the right things for your agency to be doing to really make sure that they are moving the dial towards you being as user-centric as you possibly can be. I'll be looking at the new National Theatre website as a case study, actually not so new. It launched in January 2023. I was a product lead on this, and the NT had a real drive towards becoming a more user-centric organization in their sort of internal decision-making process and moving away from just meeting project requirements for different stakeholders and different departments. Now, what was really central to this was the NT were really clear about defining their purpose. And they wanted to move away from being a very London-centric theatre towards becoming a truly national theatre website for everybody, enjoyed from anywhere in the world across their cinema, stage, and online offerings. So my tip number one is work out your purpose and how to know you're going towards it. Why are you working on this project? Why now? And who are you doing it for? And be really honest about some of the assumptions that you might be making about your users at this stage. It's absolutely fine for them to be assumptions. They are meant to be hypotheses that then get tested later. Tip number two is find your people. Who are those people in your organization who are ready for change, ready to roll up their sleeve? You want to start forming these sort of allies ASAP because you will need them as doers and as influencers on the project. Make sure that you identify those stakeholders who might be a little bit more challenging. You can use them as measures of success when they start speaking in a more user-centric language further down the line. Tip number three, understand how different users move around your site. It's a really obvious point, but there are very sort of subtle differences across different user groups. It's an obvious point to make that everyone who comes to your site is there for a reason. They want to get something out of it. They want to discover something. They want to find something specific. But even something as obvious as, booking a ticket might come with lots of different motivations. For example, at the NT, we found that the behaviors were very different for users who were coming from a sort of London-based audience through to those who were booking from Yorkshire, for example, because travel arrangements came into planning the entire experience. And so, the chances are, if you're a museum or a theatre, yes, a lot of users will visit your site to book a ticket, but really consider some of these motivations. It could be things like the travel requirements, it could be budget limitations, it could be access needs, age restrictions. Find out what these different user groups are. Talk to users, do user interviews, and make sure you're speaking to as many diverse people as possible that come with as diverse a profile from all across the country and beyond. Tip number 5 is once you've got that, map out the journeys according to these reasons and set some goals against it. What you want to be doing is you're sort of validating what your users need and what pain points they experience every step of the way. And then you can start moving towards actually solving those. You don't need to start designing and building anything in terms of your development budget before you can actually test and learn. At the NT, we use tools like Hotjar, really simple survey tool on the website, Look Back and Maze to just test some clickable prototypes. And we got so much out of that. And ultimately, it saves you time and money further down the line because you don't end up building features that you or your users actually don't need. Tip number 7 is your job at your organization is to be a kind of silent bullshit buster. And every step of the way, you need to be busting assumptions. And so the best way of doing this is if you commit a budget to rounds of testing so that if there are more ideas, more scope creep that is thrown your way, which definitely there will be, you can always have some budget to dip into to do more testing as you go along with sort of more levels of fidelity of your product. Because it's quotes like these that ultimately let you know that you are moving in the right direction. This was a quote from a screen reader user, and it was with a pool of testers that we've actually looked at a feature around choosing access services. We worked with a group of people with different abilities, disabilities, neurodiverse, really, really diverse pool of people to figure out how to create a ridiculously easy way of sort of choosing an access level of service and actually showing you a list of productions that were available to you and making it really easy, even with different types of screen readers, to click on that book tickets button. And it was also with users that we figured out how to put the National Theatre on a map, and this was particularly needed by audiences from outside of London who wanted to know what screenings in cinemas were happening or what shows were on tour near them as they've just popped in their postcode or the name of their town or city. Tip number 9, content is going to be a lot of work and you won't just need to do a content migration and galvanize all these different teams that you're working with, you will also need to make sure your content is user-centric. And the NT were really good at creating and identifying this as a role, a new role that needed to be done to make sure that all of their content would continue to be user-centric and was aligned with the brand expression as well. And lastly, show the value of helping your users. Even the most challenging stakeholders it will be very difficult for them to come with arguments against you if you show them video snippets of your users becoming delighted or being really frustrated with a product. You can start a working group or have a regular meeting where you are actually showing the value of helping users. And it's in moments like these that, ultimately you figure out, and your team will see that your job is to make it super easy for your users to engage with you online. So in summary, I think that on top of your product strategy, your 3 circles, you also need to be spinning these 2 plates. You need to have a continuous sort of mechanism, process, agency that is actively seeking user feedback every step of the way while they're building the product. And your job internally is to share this narrative, show this evidence, and show ultimately how you are making progress towards fulfilling your purpose of meeting your users' needs. And that's it. Thank you so much. Hopefully that was helpful to you. And if you need any help, get in touch.